When we're born, we know how to thrive. When we're born, our bodies know how to survive. As of recently, it's what can I inject or ingest to make me become more, rather than what can I do internally to get myself back to this natural state.
Oftentimes, we look for the quick solution. We look for the quick pill that you take and everything is suddenly better.
What if we had all of this harmonized data and I could say, Lubo, here's a supplement that I think you should take. Let's trial it with your digital twin for a week to see what that looks like on them.
What would you say has been the toughest moment that you had to go through?
One of the ones that built the resilience muscle in me more than anything else I've done to date is when I ran my 100-mile ultra.
Welcome to the Lubo Smith podcast. Today I'm happy to welcome Kevin Wathey, my good friend and the founder of a retreat center down in Costa Rica called Velara, as well as a health app called Baseline that combines wearable data with genomics and blood results and turn them into actionable items how we can improve our health. Kevin has a very interesting and strong life story, and that's why I feel it's worth hearing him out. So let's get to the discussion with Kevin. All right, let's rock and roll. Kevin, I wanted to welcome you to joining me on the podcast and very much was looking forward to have this conversation.
Lubo, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here too.
All right, amazing. Well, let's dive straight to it. I would like to remind ourselves of the encounter that we had a little over a year ago when we both joined the Still Life program. Here I'm greeting all of our friends at Still Life. Previously, I had Jim George on the podcast. It was an epic discussion. But your story very much resonated with me, and that I think really helped to cement our friendship. And we have been in close touch since then. And I felt like, your story is so incredible, and not just the story itself, but also what you're after and how you are putting your purpose into what you are doing. And that's kind of what I'd like to revolve around with our discussion. So we started at Still Life and you were telling me your story, but I think it would not make sense if we don't cover the story here as well. Would you mind kicking it off with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny piece about us meeting at Still Life was actually you interviewing me at Still Life, working on a how to ask phenomenal questions practice hosted by Jim George, which was quite timely now that we've swapped roles, so to speak. But I'll go start from the beginning. When I was 16, my mom wanted to inspire my younger sister and I, and she set out to run a triathlon. And I know you being the High Rocks world champion into the future.
In the
making right now. She ran the triathlon. She was 47 years old. She crossed the finish line, complained of low back pain, thought she had hurt herself in the race, and did everything that you could think of from a holistic perspective. She tried acupuncture, she tried chiropractic, she tried natural medicines and medicinals, and nothing worked. And it ultimately led to her getting an MRI and her finding out that she had stage 4 pancreatic cancer and was given 3 months to live. I was in high school at the time, and it really flipped my world upside down. She went from being the healthiest she had ever been, running a triathlon, to being told that she's knocking on death's door. And shortly after that diagnosis, she sat my sister and I down, said she was going to outlive the prognosis by a year, and spend Christmas with us. And she hit her goal. She spent Christmas with us in 2010 and sadly passed away the day after. I was 17 at the time, and I didn't know where to turn or what to do. And sports was my outlet at the time. And from there, I went on to play hockey semi-professionally. Hockey led me to acting. Acting led me to yoga. Yoga led me to the world of health and wellness. But it was this, I was in search of myself because I felt like I had lost part of myself when I lost her. And for a long time, up until probably 3-4 years ago, I didn't know who I was or what I was or what I wanted out of life. But I've been able to, through personal development work, through my own introspection, through things like Still Life, where I meet other inquiring minds like yourself, I've been able to recognize that experience is and does serve as one of my biggest blessings, because it was a catalyst for action and something that I've become grateful for, because it has steered me towards what I feel like today now is my calling.
Well, when you say that you did not know who you were, or you did not know where you were going, I feel pretty much the same. I think up until one point last year, I really did not know clearly what my personal goals were and what were my priorities in life. And when you start thinking about it, it's not something you can make up overnight. It's not something like, you say, okay, now I'm going to spend 3 hours and I will figure out what my life purpose is, or I will figure out what are my important goals. I think that it's an ongoing practice that you need to do very diligently, so you end up with something that you feel is meaningful and you really get aligned with, okay, this is it. I strongly feel the calling of it. And I can totally relate that I have been in the search for that for a very, very long time. And I don't want to say that I got it and everything is now fully figured out, but it's a process, and I definitely feel that I am a lot further in the process than I was 2 years ago, for example.
Yeah, I think you hit nail on the head. I think it's a practice and a process, and kind of down the path of my same as my belief in health and wellness. I think growth is a game of subtraction, not addition. Meaning, it's not the things that we can add. It's the things that we can remove to get us back to an organic, homeostatic, balanced state. Because when we're born, we know how to thrive. When we're born, our bodies know how to survive. We put all these labels on top of ourselves to say, this is who I am, this is what I'm meant to do, this is the people I'm supposed to be around to, this is the level of wealth I'm supposed to have to be, quote, successful. But it's all of these things that you pile on top that prevent you from being authentically and naturally yourself. And we've seen it a lot in the wellness world as of recently. It's what can I inject or ingest to make me become more, rather than what can I do internally to get myself back to this natural state.
Yeah, right. I think that very oftentimes we look for the quick solution. We look for the quick pill that you take and everything is suddenly better. But the tools are there. It's just that the tools require a lot of time and effort that you have to put in them to make them work. And I think that's the biggest struggle. You are right now pursuing not just one, but two ventures in the health and wellness space, and they are very much connected to each other. It's a retreat center down in Costa Rica, and it's a digital product that should basically fit nicely with the vision of the retreat center that combines variable data, genomics, as well as the blood tests, and provides valuable insights based on that. Do I describe it accurately, or something is missing in the puzzle?
No, I think you describe it accurately. I think on a high, kind of more of a scientific level, the platform itself is a harmonization platform, meaning right now there's a lot of people in the market who want to be aggregate platforms. They want to say, let's take as many tests as we can and put them into one folder. And then you need to go through that folder and figure out what's valuable to you and what's not. On the other hand, a harmonization platform says, how do we make all the files in that folder speak to one another? Meaning, how do we make your genes speak to your blood speak to your biome speak to a metabolic panel, your metabolic panel, and all of these be tied to your wearable data and create this complete picture of your health rather than a siloed, fragmented version, which we're very accustomed to in Western society. And the way that the two ventures came about, after I graduated college, I went to work for Hyatt Hotels. And again, I said I felt like I lost something when I lost my mom, and hospitality drew me in because hospitality, in my words, is a place to go to find home. And that's what the best properties do. They create spaces and places for you to go to find home. And home isn't a place, it's a space within yourself. And when I worked for Hyatt, I wanted to go deeper into the wellness side of things. And I had worked for them for a few years, was on their brand development team, helped them develop and open new properties. I wanted to go deeper into wellness. I put together a proposal of how we could branch wellness worldwide. And we would have an internal facing guest or internal facing employee program, an external facing guest program. And in 2016, I met with the CEO, CFO, VP of the Americas. They told me that wellness would never be big enough to warrant a corporate partnership. And I said, all right, I'm gonna go do my own thing. And they have Miraval now, which is an all-inclusive wellness brand in their portfolio. I think what it was at the time is I was early 20s. I was a young kid who saw the world differently to others. And I'm talking to men who have built a career in corporate hospitality their whole lives, and this young kid comes into the room and says, "You guys are thinking about the world wrong." That can be stepping on some toes. But what I did from there is I left and I started my own consultancy, helping boutique resorts build out their wellness footprint, and that allowed me and enabled me to travel for basically the better part of the next 5 years up until the pandemic. During the pandemic, I realized that I had built for everyone's brand flag other than my own. And I wanted to get not only into ownership, but into doing things differently in the way that I saw them that would actually help people. And as we moved forward in the process of iterating on what a new destination, what a new brand flag would look like, the biggest problem that we were helping resorts solve was that a stay is a very qualitative experience, meaning you go somewhere, you feel good, you come back home, you do the same thing that you did that led you to need a vacation in the first place. And there's no way for you to see improvement over time. So I said, how do we turn a qualitative experience into a quantitative one? Meaning, how do we track it? And you need a before and after, you need a baseline of sorts. And so I said, what if we did pre-stay testing, and then your entire stay on property is tailored to your biology? Meaning the food that you eat, the treatments that you get, the spa services that you go to, the education, the excursions, the activities, so on and so forth. And as that idea continued to get fleshed out, I realized that I was solving a very unique use case for myself, but the tech that was going to be needed to actually enable that to happen on property was also something that could exist in your own pocket, meaning we could make this a direct-to-consumer platform, give people the full picture of their health, have a mobile phlebotomist come to their house, do the blood testing in the comfort of their own home, pass that into an app, and now they're able to have it for a very, very low cost. But someone like you or I who wants to go stay on property and have a very immersive and experiential stay is able to then go and do this in person rather than having to say, ideate from an app, so to speak.
You mentioned that when you basically were like a kid straight out of college and you were talking to these senior executives, you saw something that they didn't. Do you like still picture what it was that you saw and how different it is to what we are experiencing today?
I think what I saw was that hospitality and health was not purpose driven. You weren't traveling somewhere because you were going somewhere for a purpose. You were traveling somewhere to escape where you were presently at. And I worked under the Andaz brand and Andaz portfolio at Hyatt. And one thing I really liked that I feel like Hyatt did really well in that brand was they didn't take a box and place it in a location. They built the hotel around the location. So if you go to Andaz Scottsdale, the last property I built for Hyatt, they have Weft and Warp Art Bar, which is a local of inspired artisans from the community that came in to design the plates, the cups, the cutlery, like everything there is locally infused. All of the uniforms that you're wearing are locally infused. Like everything on property has intention and purpose behind it. That's not something that you find at a lot of different properties. You can go to really cool locations, but it's like you're going somewhere that you could have had the exact same experience as if I was at home in my boxers in my kitchen, you know? Like cool, it's a cool different experience, but there's no intentionality behind it. And so at the time, and obviously I think over the years I've flushed out this idea quite a bit more, but at the time I saw a gap in the market where intentionality and purpose, what the vast majority of people in life say that they're searching for, and what I was searching for at the time too. And I mean, I still am in a way, and I think we're always searching. But I think that white space is where a lot of people go to hide from themselves rather than go to find themselves, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And I think that it totally shifts the perspective of why to travel to a different place, right? If you are going there to hide versus if you are going there chasing something in particular, these are two very distinct approaches, and you basically have to cater totally different experiences also.
Correct. I mean, think about experientifying your annual checkup. Today, I feel like a very high percentage of people don't do an annual checkup, or let alone know what's going on under the hood of their own health. But imagine being able to go to a resort where the entire stay is tailored to you, and when you leave, you have quarterly check-ins throughout the year to ensure that this baseline that you've set is increasing. And then the next year you can come back to the same location or a different location and have the same brand experience, but an entirely new personal experience, because your body, your biology, your physiology is completely different year over year.
I have a feeling that if we can brand and experience physical checkups that way, that we go to a beautiful resort and we have an awesome experience, then it will be a totally different game when it comes to preventative health and how people take care of themselves.
Correct. I mean, that's what Velara is. Velara means vitality divinely guided. And the Costa Rica is the flagship, which you spoke about.
Amazing. Well, I have to definitely come down to experience Velara and visit Costa Rica, because sounds very appealing to me. And you know that this is definitely a topic that is very close to my heart. But what is also close to my heart is the world of technology and how that plays into the mix. Have you seen over the past years or so certain developments that you feel made a breakthrough in terms of making this all possible?
In terms of bringing technology in a healthcare perspective?
Basically bringing the experience that you envision combining Velara and Baseline to life, right? When it comes to like all the advancements of what's happening in the world of tech.
Yeah, I think there's a couple, but I also think it's a shift in how people think about their own health. There, in the past, was this unspoken out of sight, out of mind, where I don't want to know what's going on because it's more, I don't have to confront it that way. And again, going back to the hospitality piece, it's almost like I'm going somewhere to escape rather than to confront. But the path forward is always through. And that's something that it took me a long time to figure out, because I tried to escape the inevitable that was sitting in front of me through disguising it as practicality in a way. And when I took a stance on, I'm going to step up and face the things that I was preventing myself from feeling, the loss of my mom, the loss of my best friend when I was in high school, quote unquote tragedies that have happened early in my life that have really shaped and molded who I am. That's when things started to shift for me. And I think that we've seen that in healthcare as of recently, where people want to get the preventative testing. They want to see what's going on under the hood. They want to know that this biomarker is elevated and here's the supplement that I can take, or here's the lifestyle and behavioral change that I can make in order to make myself healthier and live with more vitality. I think that's one thing, is it's how we think about it. But I think we now, with advancements in AI, there's a computation needed in order to harmonize all this data that we're starting to see. There's really cool technology coming out, and part of what we're working with on Baseline is building a comprehensive digital twin with your harmonized health data. So you're actually able to then almost foreshadow, in a way, what doing something virtually would do for you in real life. And then the I want to say ubiquity, because I live in the space, but I don't think it's quite there yet. But the willingness to allow someone into your home to do some type of testing for you. Like we've gone from, you must go into a clinic. Then we've gone from these like offshoot clinics where it's only for preventative. Then we've gone to at-home test kits. Now we've gone to full phlebotomists coming into the home. And it's this transition from health in hospital to health at home that I think is really powerful, because then it gives people agency again over their health through the lens of, I'm in control of what goes on within my body, not someone with a degree that thinks they know my body more than I do. But there's so many times, and I'm sure your life and mine as well, where you know something's wrong under the hood. And every single person you talk to is like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. But you know, deep down, your intuition, your gut is telling you that something needs to change. And when you make that shift, because you have agency and because you're in control of your health, you're able to steer the ship towards what's meant for you, and almost jump into the flowing stream and let the current take you in the direction of what's meant for you.
Would you just mind expanding a little bit on normalizing the data and the digital twins? What is the exact idea there? So people listening and watching can understand that a little better.
So as I spoke before on the folder piece, there is a lot of data floating around that people don't know what to do with, and even people with degrees still don't know what to do with, but which is comical. But there's a level of misunderstanding or lacking understanding that exists, because one doctor is focused on this symptom, another is focused on this symptom. And by the time you pile all these up, you have 10 different people talking to you about 10 different things, but really there's one root cause that's causing everything to go out of whack. It's like you hurt your ankle, but your right shoulder is wrong, and it zigzags all the way up your body to the top. But we then treat the shoulder, treat the hip, treat the knee, treat the ankle, rather than figuring out what the underlying cause was. So the philosophy behind harmonizing and unifying the data is to say, you, Lubo, are genetically predisposed for X, Y, and Z. Here are your genes. Your genes are the cards you've been dealt in life. Blood, biomarkers, microbiome, metabolic panel. That's all how you're playing the hand. Those change, your genes don't. So if we say, here's what you've started with, here's your genetic code that is unique to Lubo. Now, based on this, what are the lifestyle and behaviors that you are presently doing that are altering your biology, altering the cards that you're able to play on a daily basis? And how now, when we tie that into your wearable data, we can actually see the behaviors that you're doing in real time. How, when we now tie all that together, are we now able to get this full picture of Lubo's health and say, Lubo now knows, because on days that I don't work out in the morning, I have an increase in cortisol after my Zoom meetings with colleagues. And because of that, I'm actually steering myself away from vitality rather than towards it. And because I work out at 6 a.m., which feels stressful, it's actually a eustress, a positive stress that allows you to then move through the day in a much more fluid way. That's a very simple example, but I'll give you a more of a scientific one. Say, Lubo, we know that you have a pair 3 gene variant. This is a gene that increases your risk of cardiovascular disease if you have chronic sleep deprivation. Now, sleep deprivation is bad for everyone. This just amplifies your risk rate. Now, say we know this about you. Your wearable is connected to the platform. It's all harmonized together. And we see that, Lubo, you have a 22% decrease in deep sleep week over week. You're now dramatically amplifying your risk for cardiovascular disease, for a sudden heart attack, for something that is going to be an acute symptom that could be prevented.
What we do is take a proper nap.
You got to take a proper nap, or the platform then pushes you a 7-day protocol saying, here's a 7-day sleep protocol to get you back into optimal range to protect your health. And the beautiful thing in that is none of the challenges in the app. So the app gives you 3 daily challenges. None of the challenges can be self-reported, meaning they have to be linked to some type of wearable device. So you can't game the system and say, check off, I did this. So that could look like no phone 45 minutes prior to bedtime. Your Whoop, your Garmin, your Aura is going to tell us what time you went to sleep. Your screen time on your phone is going to tell us what time your last pickup was. And now we're going to be able to tie that together to say, did you actually tick this off? The cool part in all of this is not only are you now gamifying your health towards living with a much more vital and improved outlook on where you're able to take your life because you feel like you're in control of it. But what you're also then able to do is tie this into real world rewards, because you're able to say, hey, insurance company, Lubo is on a 90-day winning streak focused on his health. Because he's consecutively showing up for himself, why don't we show up for him and decrease his premium by $20, $40, $50 month over month? Now you're getting real world rewards for showing up for your health. That's on the harmonization piece. The other side that you asked on is the digital twin side. There's, I know you personally, so I know that how many supplements we try and take and move, and this is a cool new thing. This is a cool new thing. But
I have a whole pantry.
I know. But the thing is, rather than being your own guinea pig, what if we had all of this harmonized data and I could say, Lubo, here's a supplement that I think you should take. Let's trial it with your digital twin for a week to see what that looks like on them. Now we know how they respond, and now you can actually take action in real life, knowing what it's going to be doing for you, modeled in a digital world.
So is it like that the digital twin feeds off my data and they basically communicate with each other constantly? So you can do these tests?
Correct. Well, it's owned by you. So it would be your own avatar in a sense.
Got it. And so how big role does AI play in this whole digital twin initiative? I assume that the genomic piece is important, but also the AI piece.
Genomic and biologic piece are important because you need to have good inputs to have good outputs. And so if you have the right biological data coming in and that's being harmonized and there's QC QC checkpoints throughout the process. You know that the data that's coming in is strong. The output is strongly derived from AI because the computation needed to pull in all of these genetic, biologic, wearable metrics into one is huge. And up until recently, with some advancements that we've seen that you and I have spoken about in the world of AI, that wasn't necessarily possible. And so we're in a really cool time right now where AI is advancing so quickly that some of these things are coming online in real time, and we're sitting right at the precipice to be able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, I think that health happens to be one of the fields that is going to be impacted the most by AI and what new research will be possible, etc. At the same time, I think that we can collectively say that today there is no lack of data. I'm a living proof of that. I have 3 to 5 different wearable devices. But the problem that I don't think anyone has been able to solve properly is that there is data on every single corner, everywhere where we look, but they don't communicate to each other. They are not connected anywhere. And many companies just failed in the attempt of putting it all together. And I wonder why. What is so difficult on bringing the data together? And do you have any sense why so many companies are more or less failing on those fronts?
First, I think that more isn't better. I think quality is better. And so if we look at the belief that the more data I get, the better the output must be, isn't always true. We have to reverse that to the quality of the input, and the quality of the data that we're getting determines where we go from an output perspective. And so if all I care about is how much can I bring in? How much information can I consume? How many tests can I do? There comes a point where more knowledge and more information isn't actually helping you, it's hurting you. And I think the shift needs to happen, and it is happening, where we recognize that there's beauty and simplicity within your health, and that there are 2 to 5 things that any individual can do at any given time to get them 95% of the way there. And a lot of that revolves around things that you talked about at the beginning that they're challenging and they're hard work and they require consistency, but people haven't been in the past incentivized for consistency. And something that I told you, the story of my mom and her triathlon, something I learned from her that always stuck with me is that intensity is great for a moment in time. Consistency is what gets you across the line. That holds true for everything that we do in our lives, but we're not incentivized for it. And if you shift the incentive structure to be one of consistency, to be one of let me reward you for doing the right thing for you, for your health, for the people that you love around you, and do that time and again, day after day, that compounds to a place you have no idea where you could be in the future.
It's so true with the consistency, and it's very interesting when you actually do the math. And we can take just physical activity and exercise, and you start taking into account. So if I go for like a 30-minute run every single day, how many steps is that, and how big of an impact it's gonna make? Versus if you start walking more, or if you do something that is very it does not even feel like an activity, but it accumulates throughout the entire day, and the impact of it is insane. And it's just surprising to me how big of an impact consistency can have, not just on health, but on anything. I feel like that's one of aspects of my life that I feel very strongly about, because I've been building the same company for over 13 years. I still enjoy it. And I was just talking to a few friends recently that it's great. It's one example. It worked out, but it's not one example. It's not an exception. Literally, like when I look at it from the entrepreneurial point of view, and I look at most of my friends that were starting their businesses around the same time when we were starting, and they carried on. Today, they are extremely successful. They have big teams. They have also successful businesses. And the only differentiator is that they carried on. It's not they got lucky, they had connections, they raised a lot of money. Of course, like these are things that come into the mix as well. But the common denominator is only the consistency. They have been doing it for around a decade, and there's just no way to escape making a progress when you stick with something for so long. And I think it can be applied to health, it can be applied to business, it can be applied to competing in sports and any other aspect of the life. And that's what I find the beauty is behind it.
With enough at-bats, you're going to hit a home run at some point. And I think that there is something to be said for resilience in the world. And I think that it's lacking in present society. I think that my own personal experience early on in my life shaped a lot of that. And that's why I'm in the position I am today, because I almost have this mental model that losing my mom was the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. And because I was able to find my way and work my way through that no matter what gets presented to me, there's always a way. If there's a will, there's a way. And that resilience has been, if I attribute where I'm at today to anything, it's probably the resilience that I've been able to cultivate by showing up for myself after going through something as tragic as that when I was 17.
What would you say has been the toughest moment that you had to go through to be able to come out of this like you are doing today on the flip side?
I think there were exceptionally tough moments that stemmed from the loss of my mom. But I think that one of the ones that built the resilience muscle in me more than anything else I've done to date is when I ran my 100-mile ultra. I think that single-handedly showed me that no matter what I think I'm capable of, there's 3 levels past that if you commit and you stay consistent, you can see yourself through. And hands down, that December 2nd, 2023, that was an incredible 24 hours.
What was the training for that like, and what was going on through your head while you were basically going through such a difficult challenge that I can't even imagine?
So for my 30th birthday, I ran the same triathlon that led to my mom's diagnosis, the Tempe Town Lake Triathlon, just outside of where I grew up in Arizona. That was a highlight of my life because I had all my childhood friends come out who knew her and hold signs that said, "Do it for Dee Dee." And that was my first ever race. That sent me on a bit of a race spree. So I did a triathlon. The triathlon turned into a Spartan Ultra. Spartan Ultra turned into a marathon. This is 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later. And then after the marathon, my friend Justin texted me and said, "Hey, I'm doing a Musogi, like a year defining race in December. You want in?" And I had no idea what it was. And I said, sure. And the next day I woke up, I had a training plan in my inbox, and I was signed up for a 100-mile ultramarathon, the Brazos Bend 100 outside Houston, Texas. The training plan wasn't terrible, but it's a lot of running. It started around 30 miles a week, and at its peak worked its way up to around 70 miles a week. The longest run I did coming up to the race was only 28 miles, which is wild to think. You're training basically a quarter of the total distance that you're going to run.
It is nuts. I don't understand it.
And so I trained for 6 months leading up to the race. The coolest part of it, though, was that my 2 longest months, October and November, I was working and traveling in Europe, and I was all over Europe. So I was putting in 60 miles, 70 miles a week in a different city every single week, which was so cool to see so much of Europe on foot. The craziest part of this all is I'm in London. It's a Tuesday. The race is on a Friday or Saturday. And I get a text from Justin. He goes, have you seen your inbox? And I said, what do you mean? And he just drops me a Zoom link. I jump on the Zoom. It's midnight in London. And he goes, the race is canceled. There's weather coming through and they're shutting it down because they don't want to ruin the national park. And I'm like, I've trained for 6 months for this race and you're going to say it's canceled? Do I just stay in Europe for Christmas and the holidays, or do I come back? He goes, no. Fly out here. We'll figure something out. So from the time I took off in London and I landed in Texas, they had scheduled their own unsanctioned race called Run Your Race, 1 to 100. You got to choose the distance that you wanted. There were 102, I want to say, of the 300 something runners that signed up for it. And 20 chose to continue to do the 100 miles. It went from being 5 20-mile loops around Brazos Bend National Park to 100 1-mile loops around a church in Frisco, Texas. So it went from a trail race to a race on concrete around a church. And you get there at 6 a.m., some ex-Navy SEAL gives you a 30-second spiel. And because it's unsanctioned, he's just like, all right, well, go ahead. And I start my Garmin. I set off on foot. I have the whole thing on my Instagram. You can see every 25 miles, I took a video and trialed, like showed myself. I age 40 years over the span of this 24-hour. I look so old at the end. But I remember, it bounces
back right away, right?
Correct. But then I remember, this is the funny part. I passed the first marathon. I looked at Justin. I said, there's no way this takes all day, because I did the first marathon in 4 hours. Little did I know that was going to be a very, very challenging day. The first 28 miles, went by super quick. At mile 28, my body shut down. I felt like there was blood in my shoes. My legs stopped working. I was in the most excruciating pain I've ever self-subjected myself to. And I think in hindsight, it was because that was the farthest that my body had ever gone. And so it said, we're going to shut you down so that you don't hurt yourself. 28 to 40 was single-handedly the darkest place I've ever gone to voluntarily in my entire life. I hit 40. My body goes, he's not stopping. We might as well let him go. 40 to 70 went by in a blink. Went by so quick. 70 to 75 was cool because I said, okay, I'm going to get to 75 as like another milestone. And then when I hit 75, I said, oh shit, you have another marathon to go. It's getting into the middle of the night. It's dropping below freezing. And if I walk, I either start to fall asleep or I get the chills and like I'm shivering. So I have to keep moving. And I was doing a 6 minute jog, 4 minute walk, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. And I had this brilliant idea that Justin's house was 3 miles away from where the race was. So I said, I'm going to hit mile 97 and I'm going to pack up my shit and I'm going to run back to Justin's house so that when the race is over, I can just shower, jump into bed and go to sleep. I get back to the car. I'm hallucinating at this point, and I don't look at my watch. I throw a tub of hummus in my camel pack. I put a banana in the front pouch, and I fill up my water, and I hit the streets of Frisco, Texas at 5 a.m. I get to Justin's house. I look at my watch. I'm at 97 miles. I left 3 miles too early. I put my bag down in his front yard, and I had like 40 something minutes left. And I go, I have 40 minutes to run 3 miles to hit my goal of doing this sub 24 hours. I circumnavigated his neighborhood for 30 minutes that morning as the sun rose. My watch goes off at 100 miles, 23 hours, 45 minutes, 15 seconds. I looked at my watch. I have it, Lubo. I can show you this. I have it on video. I start crying because I didn't know it was physically possible to push yourself to a place where there's a reserve in the tank that you don't know exists. And in life, I feel that we're presented so many times with this 80% there mark, and we think that that's our 100%, but there's so much more to go that if you just remain consistent and continue to show up, you would unlock a whole new level of possibility and resiliency that you didn't know existed. And once you do, your life will be different forever because you'll know it exists.
I frankly can't even imagine, like, the longest run that I have done was a marathon, and already that is extremely painful. Doing it 4 times ish sounds crazy to me. I know that there are people that run even a lot longer distances, but still, like, doing 100 miles, I think really speaks about the determination that you have. And it seems like you, like, tapped into, okay, this is the energy source, this is the possibility of what our body can achieve. Do you now take it and apply it in different aspects of what you do? Because it seems like you still recall that as one of your toughest moments in the life.
I think once you've seen the possibility of something like that exist for you, you would never view challenges through the same light again. At least I haven't. I think that I spent a couple of years in the Tony Robbins world as a platinum partner. And through that, I learned, I think one of the biggest takeaways is life happens for you, not to you. And that combined with resilience, where everything that's happening for you is in some way designed to help you continue to grow. That combined with resilience, saying it doesn't matter what shows up, like until I'm dead, there's no game over. There's no failure until I stop. I think that's an incredibly powerful place to exist and to live.
What do you think sets apart people that can instill that mindset and power through and really get through the obstacles versus, people that still try to instill the mindset, but they get hit and they never get out of this spiral?
Subconsciously, they think they're a victim, not a victor. And what I mean by that is it's one thing to show up and go speak affirmations to yourself in the mirror and then go out on the town, and then a rock gets thrown at you and you forget all the affirmations and you go back to this subconscious state that says, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy because of this. That subconscious pattern and subconscious talk is the piece that needs to change, and that does change when you continue to push yourself outside of what you think is possible for you. Because as you continue to challenge yourself and surpass the challenges that you've put in front of yourself, you build a level of trust and self-confidence in yourself that continues to grow and expand. And so if you imagine that you're a dot on a piece of paper and you draw a circle around the dot. that circle is your, in a way, your level of comfort or your comfort zone, so to speak. When you do something that breaks that comfort zone, because what most people do is they'll go to the edge of the bubble, but they won't break the bubble. And then they'll go back in. They'll go out a little bit and they'll come back in, but they're still within their zone of comfort. If you break through that, you get to a new place that expands the whole circle. So imagine an arrow being drawn from the dot in the middle, breaking through the larger circle, going out past it, and now another circle enclosing that. Then you do another challenge that breaks it and breaks it and breaks it. And soon this zone of comfort, or whatever you want to call it, gets so big that whatever is put in front of you, you know is within the larger circle. Or if it's not, you're going to find a way to break through.
Whatever comes within that circle, you handle with ease, and you know that you can always push through and break it a little further, right?
Correct. If you've gotten this far and you've worked through things that you thought you would never be able to, you recognize that it doesn't, like, you're still here today. No matter what comes your way, you're going to be fine.
As you are building Velara and Baseline, have you made, based on your findings, any changes in terms of your lifestyle choices to, act as a guinea pig for your business?
A lot. The biggest one has revolved around sleep. Something super simple, though. Consistent sleep-wake time has altered the not only level of energy that I have, but my ability to think clearly no matter what happens during the day. I do not do well with minimal sleep, but as long, it can go either way. If I know I have to be up super early, but I go to bed at the same time, I'm okay. If I know that I am going to be up late, but I still wake up early, I'm okay. If I go to bed late and I let myself sleep in, not good. Or if I go to bed early and I wake up really early, that's a little bit better than the inverse, but it still is not good for myself. Again, different depending on your sleep chronotype and what is unique to the individual, and that's something that Baseline helps you understand about yourself. But if there's one piece that has helped me optimize myself, it's I go to bed at 9:30, I wake up at 5:30, clockwork.
I think that keeping the wake up time consistent, of course, it's a very ambitious goal. How do you handle that when you travel across time zones?
I focus on where I'm going, and I aim to set my sleep wake time to the location I'm going to be in. So if I know that I'm going to Europe, and when I land, it's going to be the morning there, I'm going to sleep as much as I can on that flight so that I know when I wake up, I'm waking up at, say, 5 or 6 a.m. in London. If it's the inverse and I know when I get there, it's going to be nighttime, I'm going to stay awake and force myself to stay up that entire flight. So it's more future pacing and doing as much as you can to align yourself with where you're going to be than trying to quote unquote catch up.
Do you play with caffeine in that mix as well to try to optimize the sleep?
I wouldn't say optimize, but I love my coffee. So I'm. It's not great for my sleep when I have it late, but I could have a double espresso and go to sleep. I'm blessed in that sense. I don't have trouble falling asleep.
I tend to say the same. I'm not sure if it's actually true.
Really?
What's the number one habit that is on your list next? What else would you like to explore?
To add to the list?
Yeah, like what would you like to experiment with? As we were talking about you being a little guinea pig for your business.
Either the absence of caffeine for a month, a fast. I've never fasted, and I'd be very curious to see how my body responds.
Fasted at all?
Never. I've never done a fast.
What was the longest? I mean, then you probably don't call it a fast. But what's been longest time that you were without food?
Probably an unintentional 24-hour period, maybe 36.
Okay.
I'd be curious to see. And it might just be because I haven't before, but I don't know how to explain this. When I am without food, it feels like my stomach's eating itself. Like I have an overproduction, and this is something that I also found out from my own testing. I have a lack of bifidobacterium in my gut because of how much I drank when I was in college and thereafter. Honestly, it came from partying so much. At least that's what I attribute it to. And the lack of bifidobacterium prevents me from being able to break down red meats and leafy greens without some type of fiber-based probiotic to help supplement and rebuild up that gut microbiome. And there was a couple of years of my life where I was having a steak in Brussels every night for dinner because I thought that was healthy. And what it was leading to was actually leading to me getting injured because I had such high inflammation in the body. Altering that allowed me to decrease the inflammation, but also incorporate these foods back into my lifestyle. But it was like, I fractured my leg because of this. I had all these other injuries because of this. And it's little things like that if you don't know, you have no idea the right thing to put into place in order to solve the root cause. You just start throwing spaghetti at the wall or supplements at your body to see what sticks and what helps. And often it's the wrong thing. So I think it's a much more intelligible way to say, rather than throwing things at and seeing what works, why don't we take a look under the hood and say, this is exactly what you need, Lubo, and here's the correct amount, correct dosage, correct everything. Let's customize that to you and set you up for success.
I think that's very much needed. And I wish you will have a good experience with fasting, because I think you talked about having a clear mind. And when I fast, especially during like multi-day long fasts, you have so much clarity, and you remove, like, imagine you spend a few hours a day eating, you gain so much time back. And the clarity from my perspective, and like the longest fast that I have done was 10 days, and just pure water fast. And I've done many cleanses where you basically have just some green juices and you stay just on that for a week. I like the cleanses a lot more, because I think that long water fast is a little brutal. But the level of clarity and thinking you can have is just next level. So I would definitely recommend for you to try it out. It's good to be in, I would say, a good setting, not work like crazy hours, and have time for yourself so you can also go relax, detox, etc. But fasting, highly recommended. I've also been doing intermittent fasting. I still do, although it's not super rigorous, but I think it just helps my body to operate better.
It's on the list.
Well, I'm very curious to see the progress of Baseline, and I definitely want to go down to check out Velara. It's very exciting. I love the connection on your side with the purpose and your heritage and the whole story. It's been very inspiring. I know that not all the events in life are, the most pleasant ones, but it seems like you have taken the most out of a very difficult situation. So that was very insightful, and thanks for sharing it with us.
Absolutely, Luba. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.